So that brings us to the closing track. I personally believe closing tracks are just as important as opening tracks, where you leave the listener, how things wrap up, portends, harbingers of where things are headed, maybe. So All the Way Alive. Let's start musically with All the Way Alive and how that ended up as the last track.
So musically, this is the other one that I wrote. And I think, when I had originally composed it, I wanted it to be a slower, more, kind of drag, it kind of drags a little bit, but it goes somewhere, it leaves off somewhere. And, if you listen to the lead of the song, it combines, like it leads into Our Distress Entwined. It has the same lead. So, I don't want to say it's a loop, a circle.
It's like bookends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that was, we all kind of came to a general consensus after we had all the songs and we were figuring out the order. It kind of made sense, where it's the album doesn't necessarily end if you don't want it to.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. That's how I saw it.
Yeah. In the days of a boombox, I remember Rain and Blood, because the record is so short, it would fit on one side of a cassette. And if you had a cassette player that auto looped, just listen to Rain and Blood over and over and over, just looping forever. And it almost felt like it didn't begin or end. That's really cool.
And I've always liked that, when bands do that, like I'm only 25. So a good example for me, at least, is, listening to The Cleansing by Suicide Silence, where it starts with, just all this terrifying screaming and just shrill noises. And then the album ends like that. And it just leads into each other. And so it's like, it's kind of like the torture never ends. You know what I mean? Right. But on this end, it's not torture. It's we're giving you, but that's just how that's how I view it, at least. But musically, it's just kind of I wanted it to be very somber.
And there's a philosophical element to that that I'm sure has not escaped Justin. The whole idea of time as from one perspective, it looks like a linear strip. From another perspective, it's a circle or it's a sphere, or the whole idea of reality and our relationship to it, of the past, present, and future happening at the same time, and all that. There's a lot of things to trip out on that I think can be represented quite well in the manner that you guys have by having that.
Right. It's interesting. We didn't do it on purpose either. I think originally the Summer Sorrows was the last track, but I think Tyler and Jonah both had talked out this idea that we do this track as the last track, and it really works out in a much better way. I love this as a final track personally, because it does exactly what Jonah's saying. It turns the record into a cyclical so that you can continue reliving it in what I would consider is something that will always be relived. So,
amazing. Do you want to talk about All the Way Alive lyrically a little bit?
Not really, no.
Nice.
No.
I just had a feeling. I knew. That's why I asked. I knew it. I had a feeling. Well, let's leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time to do this. This was super, super fun. And as soon as I learned even a rudimentary amount about your band, I was like, yes, I would love to talk to these dudes. And and track by tracks are such a great opportunity to get to know an artist and have a real exchange and a real discussion. And that's exactly what this was. So I'm very grateful and appreciative of that, and look forward to continuing the conversation in whatever formats as you guys truck along.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this a great deal. So
killer.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and to be continued. I'll make sure that we let your camp know how this is going to roll out. And I actually think because there's so much to it, it might be better served to maybe do like each song as its own little video, you know,
Yeah.
so maybe a few like 5-minute videos and then put the whole thing out together as one piece, or I don't know, we'll figure it out. But I'm excited to go back and dive into it already. So, and this makes me more excited to go back to the record now, knowing so much more about it than I did listening to it the last 2 days. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think that's one of the goals of this one, is to make something that has a repeatability, but it's also because there's so much hidden in between the lines of this record that you could never get it all in one dose, you know. And
that's what you want. Yeah, that's what you want out of a movie. I mean, if life was longer and there were more time, I would say that's what you want out of a book. There's books I'd love to read again, but but there's too many books. But yeah, there's certainly movies I've watched more than once, and records I've listened to hundreds of times. So yeah, that's what you want, is discover new things every time. Well, awesome. Wrist Meet Razor. Thanks, guys. And,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Continue.